fun. And the last thing to do would be, I guess, to share this link. I suppose on Facebook. Or I could do, or should it be Amy and me?
Amy is fine. As long as you don't say I and Amy. It'd be awkward.
Okay, so that is the YouTube is broadcasting this, so we are technically on the air.
Hi, people.
And I'll make that full screen.
Matt dragged me down here.
All right, and that guy's recording. This is recording. That's recording. Everything's recording. All right, but we need you on that camera a little bit.
Then
So
turn that way. There.
all right. So hello out there. This is Matt Reddy, host of the Mindful Activist podcast, which eventually will be a podcast once we put it on the podcast network, the way you do that. I'm here today with my good friend Amy.
Hi.
She has very generously agreed to be a guinea pig for the first attempt to record in this awesome studio, which we have access to now.
It's live on television now.
Well, it could be. We're not live on television. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is a local access cable TV studio, and eventually we'll be able to put our episodes on the local TV and broadcast them live if we really want to be that crazy. But we are going out live over YouTube, and we have a Zoom video conference going that people could drop in anytime during the show and join our conversation. So we'll see if that happens.
Join us.
Yeah, feel free to join us. That'll be fun. And eventually we are going to be welcoming like up to 50 people to join in the audio video portion of the show. Because that's what the Zoom software can support.
Only 50?
Well, we want to do more.
Are there people watching?
No, we just got a message from our potential guest.
Potential.
our potential guest. I guess we're going to get beefed every time we get a Facebook message.
Well,
I
At least
can at least tell her that we're
live.
live and Amy is here.
Hi, Kim out there. I'm calling you out.
Okay, so so for those of you that don't know, in addition to hosting this show, I'm an activist, I'm an elected politician, and a practitioner of mindfulness. And this is one of my projects to try to make the world a better place. That's who I am, and I would invite you, Amy, how would you like to introduce yourself to whoever ends up watching this?
My name's Amy Johnson, and I'm currently unemployed and looking for some freelance photography, writing. I'm awesome. I don't know. That was just
That's
I
cool.
just threw that out there. I'm very passionate about the environment, protecting the environment, and social justice. Environmental justice, in particular, is like combining environmental issues along with social justice issues, because to me they're so interlinked that you cannot separate the earth from the struggles of humans. And so within like that bigger scope, and that's to me what sustainability means. So I'm very passionate about that. I'm also very passionate about chocolate and love to just connect with people and have fun and get people excited about protecting the world.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
that sort of lends itself to the one question that I actually ask my guests every time,
Yeah.
which is, are you an activist, or do you consider yourself an activist?
Yeah. So that leads into, that will go down a long avenue. So let's just go there.
Okay.
But for me, I actually have a hard time with that word because a lot of people, I think there's such a narrow-minded view of what activism is, and I think when a lot of people hear the word activist, they think of someone that is chaining themselves to gates, blockading and protesting the kayaktivists that were happening, and or Julia Butterfly Hill and climbing up trees and being out there and being that active protester. And so for me, like there's no judgment or like you can't do that. I love and support those people that do that, but there's so many other ways that you can be an activist, and I think we need to bring about awareness of that there are those many different ways of making change. Have you ever heard of the Story of Stuff project?
I have not.
Okay, well you should look it up because it's awesome.
The stuff?
Story of Stuff.
Story of Stuff.
Annie Leonard is the one that created this. This must have been, it's probably about 12 years now that it's been in existence, but it started out, it's this black and white computer animated model showing the consumeristic society of how products, how stuff is made, and then through that whole process. And they have different series that they've done subsequently of story of water, bottled water, the story of Citizens United, the stories of cosmetics, story of electronics. But the most recent one that I really love is called The Story of Change. There's also, I think, The Story of Solutions too, but The Story of Change focuses a lot on how change is made. And the one in particular, they talk about this phrase being change makers, and how within their video, you can watch it online, it's really good, it's easily viewable. You can look at it and you can actually take a quiz of what change maker are you.
Are there different archetypes of change makers?
Yeah, there's different archetypes. So there is the archetype of the typical activist, to the resistor, the ones that are on the front lines making that change. But then there's also the ones that are, at least according to the Story of Stuff project, they have builders, those that help, that are actually in their community helping to rebuild things or build systems, build models. You would probably be a builder because you're also building this platform and this incredible technology that complicates and that confuses me.
It's a very complicated situation.
And then there's also the nurturers. And so someone baking, this is one of their examples, and it really changes your perspective of someone baking cookies to give to people, protesters out on the street or something. They are helping and having that role, but they're not considered to be the traditional activist sense, but they're still supporting the movement, they're still supporting and being part of this whole system. For me, my biggest, the one that I align most with is the communicator. I am a trained environmental educator. I've been working and teaching with kids, adults, all ages for many years, and that is at the heart of who I am, and what my activism is really about raising awareness and education and talking with anyone that will listen to me.
It's like on street corners.
No, not like that. But I have definitely talked about environmental or just education in general. Like, I believe that raising awareness and education is one of the best tools for making change out there. There's a few others there's a few other types of change makers that are listed, but I can't remember all of what they are.
But builder, resistor, nurturer,
Builder,
and communicator.
resistor. I think there's like 6. So builder, nurturer, resistor, communicator. I
That's
can't
all right.
remember the others.
Those 4 are plenty.
Yeah.
More, and we wouldn't really be able to hold it in our
No,
brains right now.
but you should.
Yeah.
'Cause you should.
Well,
Everyone
people
should
will
go
check
and
that out.
take the test because it's really fun, and it also helps. At least for me, it helps realize, because, like, from the personal side of stuff, because I don't like to be on the front lines. I don't feel extroverted enough to be chaining myself to things or being on the front lines. I'm not comfortable in that role. And I think for the longest time, there was that view that because I'm not there, that I'm not making change, or I'm not important. Does that make sense?
You by somebody else or by you and yourself?
Someone here?
That's someone potentially dropping in,
Oh, cool. We have people.
maybe. Maybe they dropped in with no video. So let's see if I can tell who it is. Oh, it's Kim.
Hi, Kim. She can't really say anything.
She
can
could if she doesn't have her. She has no microphone on. Let's see. She unmuted the microphone. Hi, Kim. And what about video? You gonna turn on the video?
Yeah, hold on.
We have a person.
High five. This is the most people that have ever been on.
I'm so
The
excited,
show.
Kim. Hi.
Okay, I got it.
All right, let's see how.
Don't lose her. There we go.
Look at that. Are you at work?
I am.
So, this is we're sort of live. No one's really watching, but
She's watching?
well, yeah, except yourself. This is audience participation. How are you?
Good. Just working, you know.
Now he's interviewing you.
Should we ask her the one question for the show?
Sure, or yeah.
Do you have like 5 minutes, or do you just want to like say hello and drop out?
I'll hang around for 5 minutes.
Okay. Do you want us to just like talk and you can just sit there and be part of it, or do you want us to? Shall we ask you a question?
I'm not picky. I don't care.
You don't care. Do you consider yourself an activist, Kim?
I guess so.
So you guess so.
Those are the hard questions. So I'm gonna start early.
Oh man, we got such a weak internet connection.
We lost you.
No, I think we have her. It just like got really
I lost the sound though.
So like you didn't understand what she said
I
right there.
didn't hear what she said.
See, this is great having another person here listening because I just pretend like I understood and I just keep going.
But you didn't hear what she said.
She said something about it being a hard question.
And then it like dropped off.
And then it got rah, 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 rah.
Yeah. Matt, number 1 rule, don't pretend like you know what you're hearing.
Well, my last interview was with my friend Chris, and he talks a lot, and so like some of it gets garbled. I'm like, I didn't really hear that,
And now he's just
Keep
admitted.
rolling with it.
yeah. Anyways, let's see. This is me figuring out how to.
What kind of change maker are you, Kim?
What kind of what?
Change maker. Like, how do you affect change in the world?
We could make it multiple choice. You ready?
Okay.
A change maker. There's builders who build stuff.
Systems or physical stuff to affect the change in the environment or in the world, not environment.
Okay.
That's one type. Then there's a resistor who has to chain themselves to stuff.
No,
That's
not
what
necessarily. I'm saying on the front lines. Where you're on the front lines, you are actively, that's the typical traditional sense of activist. When people hear the word activist, you generally think, and I could be making assumptions, but you generally think of you being a resistor. You are active out there, like, brr.
So that's another type. Then there's the nurturer, who like bakes cookies and stuff for the activists on the front line.
That are helping support in the backgrounds type thing. That's one example.
Okay.
And then there's the communicator, who communicates.
Who is the communicator? You're the educator. You are the writer. You are the. You use media, meaning like camera, writing, that type of thing, to make change.
Okay.
And I think there's others, but let's go with those right now.
Okay. I think I'm somewhere between nurturer and communicator.
Okay. Is that huh?
Oh yeah, we're recording now. Actually,
Okay.
well, we're recording in different ways, but yeah.
So here's my question back to you, Kim. So when you first were asked the question, are you an activist? And you said, I don't know. Is that because what was in your vision of activist when you said that?
The resistors chaining themselves to construction equipment.
Yeah.
It's a little extreme for me.
It is, yeah. But then, so what I was talking about with Matt earlier is the idea that I think when people generally hear the word activist, they think of that resistor type. But there's a thing called the story of change that's developed by the story of stuff people. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, isn't it one of the exhibits?
Yeah,
Science
it
fair?
is technically, but I learned about it way before the Marine Science Center exhibit. But the idea behind that is trying to expand the definition of activism, because even the little things that you're doing as far as teaching other people or baking cookies or whatever, you are still supporting the movement, and everyone has their own place and their own strengths to be able to bring to this movement. And so a lot of with the thinking of it just being I'm going to resist, I think that prohibits a lot of people from really participating and really seeing themselves as active. I can make a change in the world.
That's interesting. You kept on saying this movement. Like, are we in a movement?
Well, this movement of protecting the.
You're sort of lumping all basically good-hearted people that are trying to make the world a better place as this wave of
I
change.
guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There was a random statistic that, and if you watch, I can't remember, there's two of them. There's the story of change, and then there's the story of solutions, and I can't remember which one is which that's part of that. But they talk about how in the my brain just died. Civil rights movement, that's the word. I was like, Civil War movement? I don't think that's...
Back in the Civil War.
Back in the
We
Civil
can talk
War.
about the Civil War.
No, let's not. The civil rights movement, the believe, or like 19% of the people when polled believed that was something that should actually happen. But yet there was a lot of change because there was actual action that was involved to it. And nowadays, there's like 70%, I'm talking about particularly the environmental movement because that's where my background is in. But there's 70% of the people that think the environmental movement is a good thing to do, that we should care about protecting our resources.
Oh, I have to take that.
All right. Thanks for dropping in, Kim. That was awesome.
See you guys.
Bye.
We're doing this thing off.
You gotta hit end. I could kick you out, but how do I turn this thing off? Get me out of here.
Oh, man. So that last statistic was that 70% of the people think that the environmental movement is something that should happen. but yet there hasn't been any significant environmental, or lately there hasn't been any significant environmental push.
All right.
Okay,
So I'm gonna shift our topic a little bit.
go for it.
Okay. So I was thinking, let's talk about power,
Okay.
because I think it definitely relates to activism and changing the world. It's all about
Mhm.
power. But I was gonna go more personal. Like,
Mhm.
do you have, when I talk about power and conflicts in which you have, have encountered power, or you've encountered power trying to, that you've actually had to personally confront a
Mhm.
power situation. It could be with a group, it could be big or small, but preferably something that you've actually it's actually involved words or actions. Do you have any stories or anything come to mind when I talk about you being involved in power struggle of any sort? Whether it was a healing, positive one, or really confrontational.
I don't know.
Yeah?
That's a hard.
Well, do you, let me put it this way, how do you react if someone raises their voice to you?
Mm.
What sort of how do you close up, or
Mhm.
do you rise up, or?
I think for me, okay, in general, raising voices or the loud voice, there's a physiological reaction for me of just my heart starts pounding. I start anxiety and panic kind of raises, but what was your second part of that question though?
Just how do you
How do I react?
Yeah, how do you
Do I close up?
Yeah.
Generally, it takes a while. I have to absorb that. I can't react right away. I don't. I will just sit there. Probably, if someone's really mad at me, I'll probably just start crying. Truly. It's hard for me to respond back I don't respond back with anger. Generally I don't get angry, I cry. And so, but then, if it was a friend, or if it was, if it was just anybody, I would take the time to separate, to get my own space, get my grounding back, and then come back to the person more calmly and try to talk through it, to just express. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. So,
Without a specific
does that work
example,
for you?
it's hard.
Does that?
I'm working on it. I think it's hard in general, with people navigating people's different modes of communication and ways to communicate, but also knowing. This is so random because lately have you ever heard of the drama triangle?
Yes.
Yes. So I've been reading a lot about that lately, and just trying to step out of that and not getting sucked into that drama triangle, and realizing that there's the persecutor, there's the rescuer, and then there's the victim.
Yeah.
And within conflict, or within a situation or whatever, people can switch roles. And so if for you had the change of power, right? So if you were the persecutor, Matt.
Yeah.
You yelled at me. I then took the victim role of oh my gosh, how could Matt yell at me? That's horrible. And then I could either take the victim role, or I could then switch and then yell back at you, and then become the persecutor, and then you could choose to be the victim or the rescuer or whatever choice. But you see how that gets
and
into
a third
this.
person
And then
gets
a third
involved,
person
and
gets
that's
in.
often where the rescuer comes in. They decide to take on the role of somehow saving the situation.
Yes, exactly. And so for me personally, I'm really trying to be aware and mindful of how that can play out in relationships, or in work relationships, in personal relationships and family relationships, all of that, figuring out where the power is coming from and not letting it influence you. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned about the power triangle taking this course for teaching mindfulness in prisons.
Oh,
And
nice.
so, I mean, in a prison environment, prison is like where, if you want to learn about human psychology, prison is where you see everything happen, and you see constant, power dynamics, and so that's a very useful thing for a person in a closed environment like that, to be aware of the drama triangle and to just see drama is starting to happen, and I don't have to participate in it at all, even if it's in the room with me. I can recognize that person's playing the role of the persecutor, that one is being the victim, that one's being the rescuer, and I don't actually remember exactly the techniques, but there's techniques to sort of like I think it was basically sort of the nonviolent communication techniques. It's just like recognize that everything anyone is doing, they're trying to make their life more wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's like you have some sort of need or desire that you are going for, that you're raising your voice about, and then you sort of see, I have my needs, and let's just see if these needs, have any sort of like way to coexist. Is there any sort of win-win solutions here?
And I think there's also, I don't know exactly how this ties in, but also validating people's experiences and not trying to, you can validate them without having to be sucked into the drama or without having to be, where's my words? Without having to be sucked into the drama or without having to be acquiescing, like, oh yeah, you're right, kind of thing. It's just, yes, I understand that you feel that way or something, and it's similar to what nonviolent communication is about.
Well, I had a conversation the other day with a person I just met from a different culture than myself, and this person sort of like was very emotional about something and was really ranting and opening up about this and sharing feelings about it with me, even though we barely know each other. But it was, it's like what you're saying, when someone is expressing themselves to you in a very strong way, and they may be directing a lot of emotions at you, aggressive or whatever, it is I'm still learning how to best be with that. Especially it was particularly challenging because we don't really know each other, and this person knows I'm a politician, and that's like the only thing they know about me, and so I'm like, they like put me in this category of politician, which is really not my strongest identity and character trait, wouldn't you say?
I would agree with
that. That's not really the main. That doesn't really, I don't have the typical emotional makeup of a politician,
Right.
or values or anything. But it was hard. The person was so emotional and speaking to me and making assumptions about who I was and sort of attacking me a little bit. And when I realized anything I said, it was like a no-win. Anything I said, it was just like material to hit, and I was like, okay, me talking, at least I'm not, things I'm choosing to say are not working for healing the situation. So I suppose that's when you go into like reflecting. Like, I hear you saying that sometimes that does not even work.
Sometimes that can actually, I've had that backfire.
Yeah, like people get upset that you are attempting to re-say what they said, and they're like, no, you got it wrong, you don't understand.
Yeah. And I don't know what you ended up doing, but
just listening, basically. And then even worse, I had to go. I was on the phone, and I had to
You were on the phone with
It
this
was
person?
on the phone,
Oh,
and
that's harder.
which much worse.
Nonverbal communication is huge.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I had to sort of try to say I have to go to this thing, and then that sort of added to the fuel.
Oh,
But we talked later.
okay.
It got better, but those are always, I mean, intense. When someone's intense, whether they're like doing a power thing or they're raising their voice at you to try to get you to do something, or they're just being intense about anything, or they're judging you or judging a situation. I mean, I always it feels surreal to me when I'm in a situation like that, because it's like being on an amusement park ride or something.
The intensity and the role of the emotions that
Yeah,
go through.
because I never would, at this point in my life,
Mhm.
I would never like raise my emotional intensity with another human being
Yeah,
to that level,
right.
unless I'm playing a sport. I mean, that's the only time. If I'm playing
Yeah.
a sport, if we were playing basketball against one another or
Yeah.
whatever, then I would, I let myself get intense, and my body gets intense,
Yeah.
and once in a while there accidents happen, and there are collisions and stuff, but in the ordinary course of
Yeah.
us doing something, I would never raise my voice to a person.
I don't know if we want to go here. I don't know if I want to go here, but Trump was in Everett, Washington.
Oh, we can go to Trump,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
No, I don't know if I want to go there.
All right.
Because, but he was in Everett, Washington yesterday, and I have a lot of friends. I used to live in downtown Everett, so like 6 blocks from where he was, and so I had a lot of friends that were posting that they went to participate in the protest, or participate in, like, one of the friends actually disguised themselves like a Trump supporter and actually got to go in, and they were in. And like, to me, every time I watch it, and that's what's hardest for me, is when I watch that, I see so much of that anger and exactly what you're talking about, where people are in your face yelling at you with so much emotion and so much intensity that it is really hard to not want to yell back or to just and sit with it. It's one of the hardest things, I think, to do. For me, every time I hear even Trump supporters or the anger and that, there's a word that I'm looking for, but it's not coming to me, of just how much lack of consideration of other people and other viewpoints that happen when that intensity, that it's more about I'm right and you're wrong, and not about, hey, we're both human. Let's figure out, like, that's just boggles my mind, because that's where I am in my essence, is always seeing both sides and being able to be the natural mediator. I think mediator was one of those, actually.
Oh, mediator.
Maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know. Don't quote me
Add
on
that
that.
to us. We'll add it. Just make a mediator.
I can make my own
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I'm making it. But just always being able to see both sides and the humanity that's lost, of, like, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if I want to go there, because it's intense and it boils up inside me.
Yeah. Well, I don't think elections for like presidential candidates or any sort of candidate, they aren't events that I think really help communities
Mm-mm.
solve problems or
Absolutely
anything.
not,
They
yeah.
just sort of,
It
they're
puts
just
you
a way
against
of,
each other.
yeah, they just sort of create sides,
Yeah.
and then you try to make your side win. And Trump is, he just created this really it's a really powerful edge
Mhm.
in, and he in particular, as he just like attracts the most voracious, types of people to
Mhm.
that edge. And so, part of me thinks it might be healthy for our society.
Yeah.
Instead of having like a lot of the beliefs and values that he, that some of which we think maybe are pretty ugly, instead of those being like beneath the surface, hidden under code
It's-
language and
yeah,
code words, it's just
absolutely.
like out there.
Yep.
And so we're just like looking at it and dealing with it. It's not fun, but it might be healthy
I
for our
get that
society.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard because, like, being on that mediator, like, can see both sides, and seeing this, I'm also a systems thinker, like, I can see how everything interrelates, and I really, yeah, seeing how one action can ripple and down to another action, and how all of that. But so I can see, and I get frustrated with the system, that I can see how Trump supporters have gotten that way. They have feel just like at a loss that their country is giving them all this crap, and that they see someone that connects with what they're feeling inside, it just fuels and builds up to it. And so I don't disparage, I don't think that's the right word, but I don't think that the Trump supporters are bad. I think they're just, I can see how it happens, and it's sad for me. I think that's mostly what happens, is I'm sad that is the way that things are falling through.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just another side of the populist movement that's growing. There's the Bernie Sanders
Yeah.
left-wing populist
yeah.
movement, and then there's this right-wing
Yeah.
populist movement, and they're both coming out of massive discontent with the
Yes.
the way power works in our country, realizing
Exactly.
these two parties, we
Yeah, they
don't
really-
control them,
yeah.
and then it's just sort of like, I mean, I feel like this was an incredibly exciting primary season that we had non-establishment candidates
Yeah.
just throw rebellions in both parties. One actually
yeah.
won. No idea where it goes from here, and it's kind of unfortunate that the mainstream establishment candidate won on the Democratic side, but the radical right-wing candidate won on the left side, because the establishment candidates are very flawed because they're part of the establishment and part of that whole power
Yeah.
structure and status quo.
And one of the things that I hope, and goes back for me to the come back full circle to the change makers, is that, like, Bernie's, that revolution and that movement, if you want to say, really highlighted the concerns that from the progressive movement, and realizing, and one of the things that I want, that is really important to me out there, is making sure that people, just because Bernie didn't win the primary, that doesn't stop them or prevent them from still making the change, because the awareness, I hope, is out there, and more building that awareness and realizing that we are the change makers, that it's not going to be placed in some hero of like, oh, Bernie was going to save us all. I mean, that's what happened with Obama, right? With Obama being the hope. He's our hope. He's going to save us all. But he can only do so much. And we are the ones that really have the power and should have the power to be able to make the change. And so participating in activism, however way you perceive it, whatever works for you, whatever's there for you. I will always be an educator. Probably won't see me on the front lines, but I did, totally other random note, I did back about 4 or 5 years ago, I got to interview Julia Butterfly Hill. And she was the one that lived in a redwood tree for 2 years.
Wow. That's some commitment.
That's some commitment. And she is just an amazing person, as far as she's like, she says it herself, I didn't think I was an activist. I didn't ever consider it. This was just like, I did little steps, and her intention was not, oh yeah, I'm gonna go live in a tree for 2 years to protest this. It was just through happenstance, through steps, and what life led for her. And she was really fun to interview because she talks a lot about that sustainability being environmental and social justice and really connecting the two together. And also realizing that that everyone has their own personal choice and what that works for them. Like, she doesn't expect everyone to go and climb trees to protect. She also sees that everyone has their own different way of participating, as long as you're actively participating in the movement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the reasons I like the question.
I keep saying movement a lot. I don't know why.
That's good. There's lots of movements, going on.
I move.
Well, one of the reasons I like to ask the word, are you an activist, or do you consider yourself an activist, is there is this, a lot of people have this resistance to saying yes. And so then, but I sort of feel like, if you're trying to change the world in a positive way, in any significant way that's beyond just your life, you're taking action to change the world. It's just like, so it's just sort of like a judgment call of what you do. And I think it's just important that everyone that cares is keeping their mind open and their eyes open to opportunities to do things. And you just never know where it'll take you. If your eyes, and that's one of the reasons I title this podcast The Mindful Activist, because mindfulness is just practice of actually having your eyes open or your attention open. And when you're mindful in any moment, you see more paths from that moment. You see more options, more possibilities. And I think maybe activism in our country is in a bit of a rut in terms of figuring out how do you change things. And one of the ruts is thinking, elect an awesome guy to president and you're going to change the world. It's like that.
That's not going to happen.
Well, that might be one piece of it, but it's like not the place to invest all your energy and hopes is into, even if you win, like you said, win with Obama, he's still stuck in an incredibly corrupt machine.
Right.
You got to change the whole thing. You have to have pressure on every point, and you have to be creative, because the system is built to allow you to put activist pressure in certain ways, and they want it in those ways. They're like, please do a petition and get lots of signatures and use that as your form of activism. And they're like, we love that because we know how to ignore that, or please run candidates for offices, as long as you don't get too many. You don't need to care about that. And it's like, so you have to be creative.
And raising awareness about all those different mechanisms or ways. Like, yes, I can write a petition and I can sign a petition or whatever, or I can just choose not to support. And I'm thinking,
not buying products or something.
Not buying products. There's a lot more power. You have a lot more power and influence, I think, than people realize, and they're willing to just give it up to put the hopes in this savior complex of, hey, I'm Obama or the president or whoever. Trump. They have the same thing of Trump is going to save them. They have that same viewpoint of Trump is gonna help me get a job, but that's not. It's a matter of participating actively in the system to try to change the system.
No, it's true. And I noticed this a lot when I was helping stir up the Occupy movement in this community, that you reach out to your friends, you tell them what you're doing, and you realize people have this choice of how do they support something they believe in. And the simplest way is money. Actually, the simplest, easiest way is, what if I throw $5 or $10 or whatever towards this cause? and then, it's sort of like you basically put every action you can take, even the ones that people know about, on a spectrum, and I basically measure them by how much time it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much time does it take you to donate some money? That's one level of action. It's like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But then how much time does it take to write a letter to the editor? That's like another investment of time, and it's a little more vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there, but still maybe an hour or two.
Mm-hmm.
And then another level is if you're like being invited to events, rallies, you could actually go with your physical self and go and learn about it or support it, and that's another level of commitment of time. And then of course there's like there's, if you want a law changed or you want something to happen, you could actually go to city council or the county commissioners and try to talk to them one-on-one, or you could try to speak at public comment, or you want to go crazy, you're just insane, you really want to make change, you could run for office, and then you're like, get to talk about your issues for months and months and months while you're campaigning. And so anyways, and then those are all things people know about, and then there's the creative things you can do, the outside the box thinking.
And I think as you were talking, what came up for me was that discouragement that people could feel as well, of like, what is my action? How is that really going to make a difference? If I go to a rally and I hold a picket sign, or if I go to write that letter to the editor, how much of a difference is it really going to make? And I don't have the answer to that. I really don't. And it's a longer topic than this. But I think that's something to be aware of, is like, I know a lot of people who feel so discouraged by the system that they don't even want to vote. They don't even want to register to vote because there's so much, well, what is it going to really matter in the long run? And that, I've had my moments of like that.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I mean, absolutely. We're so disempowered because all those things I just named, they do nothing. Yeah. They basically accomplish nothing except they're running for office. I mean, that's when
but
I think
then you're
of
still
all,
within the system, and then it's hard. It's gonna make some change, but
I would say, but of all the things I've done as an activist, I would actually say, I mean, the two most extreme things you can do that stir things up the most are running for office or doing something in media, like literally starting your own show or something. Those are like, those are like really, but they're, in a way, they're just putting a max amount of time. It's like changing the world is like, it's about changing the story, changing what we're talking about, and the only way you can do that is if you're telling a story. And you tell a story if you're running for office, you tell a story if you're on media, you write a book, you just basically start talking and you're telling a story nonstop and trying to get people to hear the story, and then the choice is
communicating.
Well, but then the choice is, are you going to be the only storyteller? Like, it's my story, listen to me, everyone just repeat my story, and then you're like, now you're being like a political leader, or is there a way to, and I guess that's what I'm trying to do, is like, I want to like help grab control of the story, but I don't want it to be my voice. I want it to be like thoughtful, interesting people, have any numbers coming together and sharing, let's retell the story of what's going on right now and tell it honestly, and let's be respectful. So I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. So this conversation helps sort of clarify that for me.
Yay!
Let's see. So we've done that. We've done like almost an hour. Is there anything? It's been a fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. Didn't know where we'd go with it, since, when we were doing our planning session, when we like planned this episode.
We totally planned. It took us like good 2 hours to plan.
Lots of time.
Lots of time.
Maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah. Probably more likely.
Yeah. But I like where we went. It was fun, and it was another good test. We got a drop in, and that was interesting. And we have lots of video going, and we'll get better at figuring out how to do this. And we'll actually promote it more to see if people drop in and see what's going on. Anything else you want to say to the world before you sign off on your first appearance on the Mindful Activist Show?
I'm unemployed and need a job.
And do you have a website or anything you want to, or a Twitter or anything like that for? Like they could always contact the show if they're like, I want to
contact the
hire.
show. I'm still working on getting a website
Mhm.
done, but it's coming together.
Yeah.
But contact the show and then they'll contact me.
And
I have lots of great thoughts.
I don't think we like shared your whole name. Do you want to like say?
Amy Johnson. I think I did say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amy Johnson, thank you for being a guest. That was really
Yay.
fun. Thank you, anyone that watches, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
You can catch this on the globalconsensusproject.org or at hive1.net. You can follow it on Facebook, The Mindful Activist, and
You always say fitter.
on Fitter.
Facebook
On
and
Fitter.
Twitter.
Yep.
Fitter.
All right, so
All right.
we'll stop everything now. All right, bye.